Usual. It's usually a live stream, but today we're going old school and we are recording, but we're going to still dig in to the pressing issues and emerging trends that are shaping the business landscape. We're not going to have time to get any questions, but please feel free to reach out if you've got any questions about today's session. I'm Kathy Steele. I'm the CEO of Red Caffeine, and I'm your host today. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with Red Caffeine, we are a growth consultancy, and we build and execute go-to-market plans for ambitious mid-market companies. Our service offering includes a fractional team led by a senior-level marketing executive that enables a business to scale rapidly without hiring a wide range of full-time staff members. And today we're diving into a topic that I'm very passionate about, and it's branding. I am a traditionally trained artist and graphic designer in my past, and so this is a topic that is really close to my heart. We've also seen the impact that a rebranding initiative can have on an organization, but a lot of people think about branding and not brand strategy. So it's a lot more than just a logo and a mark. Rebranding can be a really strategic move to revitalize a company's image, align with evolving market trends, and better reflect an organization's current values and offerings. For your customers, a rebrand can signal innovation, a commitment to quality, and improved customer experience, fostering increased loyalty and advocacy. For employees, it can reignite a sense of pride and motivation, creating a more cohesive and driven team that is excited about the company's future and the direction and goals. So we are very happy to have David Doyle, President and CEO of Heidenhain Corporation, here today. And he's going to talk us through a recent rebranding effort that we've worked on together. But first, David, if you could just give a little backgrounder about yourself and the company, and then give us something interesting that's not on your bio.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Thanks for the invite to participate today. And yeah, we're really excited about the work that we've been doing, the Accurite brand, on behalf of the Heidenhain group of companies. A little bit about myself. I came to Heidenhain in 2016. My background is predominantly in semiconductor and electronics capital equipment markets. I would say most significant in that is working in advanced metrology and inspection applications for advanced integrated circuit manufacturing applications. Predominantly with companies based here in the Bay Area. So moving to Heidenhain, the connection there really is that Heidenhain is an enabler of advanced motion control applications within capital equipment OEMs that are providing solutions into the machine tool industry, semiconductor, electronics manufacturing industries, as well as general automation, robotics. So some of the very advanced applications that we see in those fields are enabled by Heidenhain technology. Accurite is a US-based brand. We have full responsibility for engineering, development, manufacturing, marketing of the Accurite annual machine tool digital readout and control products, mainly for the US market, but also for some international. So there's a long history between Accurite and Heidenhain, obviously, in terms of prior acquisition. We just celebrated somebody's 40th year with a company that has been involved in Accurite, as well as Analan prior to that, which was a similar type of technology platform we acquired. That's not on the resume or on the bio. Two things I would say on the personal side, given what's been happening in Paris in the last few weeks with the Olympics. I was actually a competitive swimmer in my youth, and very pleased and proud to see Ireland winning its first gold medal in swimming at the Paris Games in the last 2 weeks. So I think Daniel Liffin won the 800 meters freestyle. So for me, thinking about all the hard work in the pool and some of the challenges of technology actually in swimming in Ireland back in the day, it's really great to see somebody really achieving the pinnacle of success in the sport with the Irish flag and the Irish national anthem. The other, I would say, piece that is probably not as obvious in the resume that's sort of work and personal related is using the bio reference. We actually have an interest in biotechnology here at Heidenhain, and I have a personal interest in biotechnology as it relates to rare disease diagnostics, and have worked with some nonprofits in that area as well. So there's some things that you don't necessarily see between the lines.
Yeah. Well, David, I want to mention that we're just still having a little tiny trouble with your volume. So if you could just speak up a little bit, I appreciate you sharing some of the
Sure.
history of yourself and the business. And congratulations to your home country on the big win. And I know you're an incredible golfer, so really interesting that you're also a great swimmer. Um, I think, where I'd want to start today's conversation is kind of digging into the why behind a rebranding effort. I mean, I think that the really interesting thing to me is, that Accurite's been in market for many years. It's an iconic brand in the marketplace, and there's a lot to a rebranding effort. So can you talk a little bit about some of the rationale and business thinking that factored in to the idea of going through a rebranding strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say the primary driver for rebranding came from perhaps a holistic view of how we wanted to develop a growth strategy for the brand and for the product lines involved, specifically digital readout and the future control architectures for manual machine to an application. So the initial, I'd say, steps in that process was to restructure the product roadmap, identify our product positioning relative to competition and market opportunity, and really start to think about and execute on new product implementations. And that work really started for me anyway, at the end of 2016. We also restructured our channel partners, which was, how do we engage with customers more effectively? And as we went through that process and delivered on those goals, 2 years ago, in and around the IMTS timeframe, which is usually September every other year, we really sort of asked ourselves, a question about what did the future look like for Accurate. And when we looked at that, we realized that yeah, you can be a well-established brand and be comfortable perhaps with the brand recognition that you have, but have you really sharpened the message to your customer, right? In understanding precisely what your value proposition is, do you really understand perhaps how the personality of the brand is interpreted through your channel partner and into end users? So when we had the opportunity to think about the plan for 2023 and 2024 leading up to IMTS 2024, we had a variety of different objectives in mind, led by product innovation and technology innovation, right, in the products. And that innovation and maybe the modernization of technology for what is a traditional manufacturing application, we felt would be complemented by a rethink of the brand itself, and really perhaps taking the opportunity to reposition the brand. In addition to that, there are some mechanisms with regard to digital marketing through website restructure, SEO, perhaps making sure that we're optimized in that area in terms of people finding Accurate as a brand. And then I would say, the other area was how do we shift towards perhaps introducing some level of e-commerce capability as well, which traditionally we wouldn't have had, and as a complementary process alongside our channel partner engagements as well. So all those things together was sort of the motivational piece towards rebranding. And one of the first steps that we took with Red Caffeine actually was to really step into a workshop and really understand what the, let's say, buyer experience is from a channel partner perspective, from an end user point of view, and also from a service perspective, after sales support. And we really dug deep into those areas and said, okay, in addition to the branding, what is it about the way we operate and execute that will ultimately align with the message that we have previously delivered, but perhaps needs to be refined in the branding process.
Yeah, I feel like, there's a visual sample of the former brand on the left, the blue brand, with, how it emerged through this process. So let's talk a little bit about the process, because I do feel like when people think about branding, they think about the logo, they think about the mark, as we talked about a little bit earlier, but there's a lot more to it. So let's talk about some of the steps that were taken. You mentioned positioning and some of the messaging. If we go to the next slide, really talking about where positioning, what it is, and the opportunity it presents in a rebranding effort to really own a special place in the minds of your customers, your employees, the marketplace overall. So talk us through some of the things that are within your positioning statement here.
Yeah, actually, it's nicely laid out here, color coded, right? So the first real sort of step is to identify what the real motivation for your customer is in buying your technology or similar technology. And in our case, we're taking a manual system and adding technology and automation to it. And the purpose of that is to improve the profitability, right? So the first part of that is defining that sort of problem statement. What is the customer really interested in? The second thing is, well, how do we actually do that? How do we enable that, right? And how do we identify that very precisely? And that was basically to define our product positioning, which is really delivering higher precision, perhaps higher throughput, higher quality associated with the digital readout and CNC control systems that we developed in the market. The other piece of that is in the differentiation side, or what makes us special. And what really does help is that Accurite is part of a group of companies, and Heidenhain, being the parent, has a very advanced position in 5-axis machine tool applications with very advanced capabilities and technology. And we leverage that know-how. We leverage the hardware and software capabilities that come from the parent in the Accurite technology. So with that high power and depth of engineering and manufacturing capability that Heidenhain has, we've been able to sort of leapfrog in some ways technology innovation with this sort of next step of growth objective for Accurate. And we'll talk about that maybe later in the discussion. The last piece is ultimately, how does that translate into the, customer value statement? So what are they getting out of investing in our technology? And that is defined in the green section here, which talks to efficiency, quality, and ultimately satisfaction. So that's sort of where, we sort of came from, is how do we break things down into a way that we can build it back up into a more coherent, more specific value proposition statement that can be easily digested and resonates very well with the end user of the technology. And ultimately, there's further things, right? When you look at the mark, there's a color scheme, there's a design within the mark, and the intention there is to look at, who are we trying to address and how are we trying to address in our market. And we are really enabling folks who are creative and who are in an environment that can be complex, and they're trying to solve problems. So they are creative thinkers, and that's one of the sort of key archetypes that we targeted, right? And said, well, okay, is that truly who we're selling to? And then the second piece is, how do we want to engage with our customer base? And we came up with a concept around, a very collaborative posture that we take with our customers in terms of addressing applications needs and developing solutions. And that's where the brand name extension came, right? We went from Accurate to Accurate Solutions. And there's certain differentiation there as well to help us in the digital marketing side too. So those things combined ultimately came to a change in the name, in addition of a tagline, driving precision. And then the last piece was what is unique about the mark, or the identifier, the trademark of the brand name, and also in the design of the mark itself. So there was a lot of energy invested collectively to come up with that design and refine it such that it conveys a high technology component to our product, conveys the personality of the brand, and then the value proposition of the brand is incorporated into the name and the mark.
Yeah, and I know we've got some future examples of, each piece of the branding, from the tagline to the mark, and some of those nuances that were considered. But again, thinking about what the brand means to customers, what it means to the marketplace, what are those things that customers value in your positioning and messaging. I think those are really critical pieces that elevate who you are as an organization and and the product line itself. And I love, the complexity of being a family of brands and tying from one brand to another. I think we did a really effective job of talking about why that connection point was important to the overall product line and customer base. Uh, Moving into some of the other things that were more like building tactics of the process, we went through a lot of work in terms of identifying with a brand archetype that, for those people that really have never been through an archetyping process, it is creating that human connection to your brand. And if you think about brands overall, as you can see in this visual, uh, there's a lot of iconic brands represented here, but each of those brands is tied to a persona or a brand archetype. And, I think if you think about Harley Davidson and the Rebel, I mean, that is completely crystal clear in that brand and their marketing and their product. So, using that brand archetyping process for the Accurite brand, you came up with two types of archetypes that were complementary for the brand exercise. Can you talk a little bit about the archetyping process and why you landed on the caregiver and the everyman?
Yeah, often there's sort of difference of opinions in terms of, within a team, for instance, in terms of different people's roles of, how they perceive themselves, right, and perceive the role of the brand and in the industry. For us, we focused on perhaps the value proposition piece of it, what we're bringing to the table and why. Why is it important, and to who is it important to? And so you have two pieces of that, right? You have the person who's working with material, right? Who's actually taking the CAD design, perhaps, and realizing part in a material and using a manual machine tool to do that. So when we think about user experience, and this translates directly into the product, the feature set that we create is intended to make it easy to use in terms of user interface programming, utilization, and really looking at the specific features that are needed for that person who's in the manufacturing environment, who's troubleshooting and maybe problem solving on a daily basis. So how do we enable them to solve those problems more efficiently and more quickly with better features? And that's what sort of led us to this sort of greater persona or archetype that we were positioning towards. They're the end users, they're the people who are hands-on. On the other side, there's the, let's say, manufacturing shop owner who's looking at productivity of their investments, right, in terms of what type of technology do they want to integrate into their manufacturing process. And there's a lot of focus on automated CNC machines that can run lights out, but there's always a layer of support infrastructure in the manual machine tool space for those types of tasks that require a different type of human interface and control. So in that context, what we're trying to do is bridge perhaps between the manual operation of a machine tool into a fully automated platform. And there's certain aspects of the product line that allow us to stepwise increase the level of technology that we can apply into a CNC application. So the business owner is a key individual or group of individuals that we are marketing to. The second part of it is in our channel partner program, we want to be collaborative and supportive to enable our distributors who are also adding value by virtue of the technical skills that they bring, i.e. providing the right level of product training, the right level of support, the troubleshooting perhaps in the field during installation or maybe service or retrofit type applications. So the idea here is, well, we have to be open, we have to be transparent, we have to be engaging, we have to be focusing on excellence as it relates to customer support. So there's the pre-sales piece of that, which says, okay, what are the applications you're focused on? What's the right fit of a product solution for those applications, whether it's a bed mill, knee mill, turning application or something else. And then there's the post-sales piece, which is, okay, when you have somebody in the field that's needing components, needing technical support, product selection, what is our style of engagement in order to be a company that's easy to do business with, easy to reach, easy to get hold of, and to really, work hand in hand with the channel partners just to solve those problems that are evident in the end user environment. So, that process was a discovery process for us, right? Is to really do some work to be more aware of how well we do things, areas where we can see opportunity for improvement. And alongside the branding exercise, we worked on implementing modifications to our processes to make sure that we live up to that everyman persona here, right, or archetype that we describe here, which is that, we want to be collaborative, we want to be engaging, we want our customers to report back to us that they're getting excellent support, and that we're working hand in hand to solve problems in the field. So that's sort of where they came from, right?
Yeah.
And as we went around the circumference of this, we were able to quickly eliminate some of the other archetypes, and eventually we landed on those two.
Yeah, I know. I mean, this is one of my favorite parts of the branding process. And I think creative brands just have that's so much of an enablement focus in allowing their customer base to use tools that allow them to be creative. I think people forget how creative the manufacturing process is. And so I was excited that you guys landed there. Everyman, I think it really appeals to the vast types of buyers that you interface with. So I believe that this was really nailed in the process. So we're going to step through some of, more details on the brand itself, the logo itself, and why some of the things, the intentionality around some of the things that we did in the process. So that naming update that you referenced in adding the word solutions to the Accurate brand, can you talk a little bit about some of those pieces?
Yeah. So there's two aspects of that, and then obviously the tagline on the bottom as well, right? But the first is that the adding solutions to the brand name was intentional to reflect upon the fact that we have invested a lot of engineering resources in developing additional solutions that are complementary to where Accurate would have been positioned historically through, let's say, 2020, and those new products are basically expanding the business opportunity for us as a company. And it gives our channel partners additional portfolio of products to position alongside each other. So you can have standardization, for instance, in a schools environment where you may have an email dead mill and turning applications. How do you have a consistent learning environment for students that are developing their skills in manufacturing? The other piece of it is that we want to differentiate from our competition, right, in terms of not just the innovation side, but also the fact of breadth of product offerings. So the solutions piece fits in there. We do have an interesting issue in that we have a similar or a company that has a similar name, right?
Yes.
And they're actually they reside very close to us in southern Wisconsin. And we get all sorts of calls from folks who buy Accurate weather systems. And we are obviously very quiet in redirecting those phone calls to the right place, where people aren't necessarily astute in terms of doing a quick Google search and trying to find Accurate. They come to Heidenhain in Schaumburg, but they really need to be targeting the company from Wisconsin. And so the idea here was also to change the naming configuration such that when we go to SEO, that we have the ability to better differentiate, so that more customers are coming directly to us and less confused Accurate weather customers are coming to us. So that was an interesting thing. We joked at one point that we would have a tagline that said "Not the weather company," if you remember.
Exactly.
So yeah, so the tagline, powering precision. There's a certain degree of investment in this mark and naming and tagline that's intended to sort of create a sense of energy, a sense of motion, because we're a motion control company. And if you look at the tagline, the mark itself, they both resonate in that way. The design of the mark is very specific. It's got very specific symmetry, sharp points, but also rounded edges as well. So it shows the dexterity of control that's necessary in a sort of manufacturing application. And then powering precision is intended to say, well, we have the feedback from encoder technology from the group that's integrated with the digital readout and control, and the motor control that we have as well in terms of um, very accurate and precise machining applications. So that's why I think solutions became something really important to us, because we're not just providing a digital readout or a control interface, we're also delivering the feedback encoder technology. And actually, most of what we sell on the CNC control side are sold in kits, right? So there's a combination of different components that are sold together. And it's again trying to sort of get our arms around the fact that when we are approaching an end user through our channel partners, we're trying to identify, or maybe an OEI, right, an original equipment integrator, or OEM, original equipment manufacturer, that we're developing a solution that fits for their platform, right? And that's true not just for Accurate, but I think for Heidenhain as a whole, regardless of what application we're in. We take that approach of trying to understand the customer's problem statement or environment, and then developing the right solution that will deliver the right value for that particular application, and right-sizing the technology, but also right-sizing the integration steps that are necessary for that. So that's sort of where the naming, the tagline thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think it's so interesting to kind of even just circle back to the business case. Now, while it's funny to be, confused with another business, I think that it does take time away from your core offering. And so, making sure that I think we uncovered a lot of that in the SEO and early research process, and we're able to make some recommendations that would help streamline the sales process. When somebody's coming to you, they're actually coming for an Accurate Solutions product. So I think this is, really tying the rebranding effort to some things that were centered on in the research process that came in advance of actually getting into the actual mark and rebrand itself. So in the next slide, I think we do showcase a little bit about some of the rationale around the mark and why we went in this direction. So, talk a little bit about, where we landed in terms of the actual mark itself.
Yeah, so the mark incorporates a feature that is intended to reflect, the first letter of the brand name Accurate. And as I said earlier, the design within the mark incorporates, colors that represent in the archetype analysis the creator and the everyman, and the blend of those two, right? As I said earlier, the specific features within the brand create a sense of energy, but also a sense of accuracy and precision, just by
Right.
the nature of the design of the individuals themselves. Modernity is something that is important to us. The more recent product development activity that we've been involved in has been taking what is perhaps a more traditional sort of system interface and integrated in a more modern way. So for instance, on the digital readout, in addition to the integrated products, which is console, which we may show in a little bit, and we also have the technology now on an iPad, right? So we took the software platform and created an application. And the rationale for that, and the modernity piece of it, which ties to the branding, is that we really wanted to take the technology and appeal to the next generation of manufacturing workforce who are coming through, who are used to an educational environment where a lot of material is on a tablet, that they have the ability to have training materials, but also the application that can be connected to a variety of different types of systems with the right hardware configuration, of course, on those systems in the technical school environment. And one sort of aspirational goal was to say, well, if we invest in a tablet with this software license and give you the training tools and give you the supporting applications for 3D CAD design and manipulation, ultimately, can you take that repository of information capability into the manufacturing environment, out of the school into the manufacturing environment? And in that case, there's a certain degree of adoption that's necessary on the industrial side, where you have an iPad configuration, much like you have utility workers who are,
Right.
calling and taking data and using a tablet as a platform for that. And we're doing sort of same type of thing. And the learning that we generated in that process is now being applied into what I would refer to as the next generation CNC control, which again leverages a quantum step in innovation and modernity with regard to the level of software capability and the level of hardware capability that we'll be able to leverage from the parent company, right? So in all those things, as you think about the product roadmap and the value proposition that you bring to your customer, and as that's evolving, you want to integrate those things into the market and into the branding itself. And that was the rationale for this, right? And our testing ground, right? And I think we, talk about how we introduced the brand, right, and the launch of the brand. But the point was we wanted to take the brand internally, evaluate, how people responded to the change, and then also with our channel partners, right, and ultimately to the end users after we launched it. So, there was several steps of validation of, is this the right direction for us in terms of rebranding the product, and are we taking, is our rationale for the ultimate results of that process in tune or in line with our channel partners and ultimately our end users as well.
Yeah, and so I was, that's great lead into how we were thinking about, how to get this into market. I think that this is a really critical part of a rebranding exercise. I mean, obviously we had, to connect the brand with the family of brands. But when we were thinking about, bringing that brand to market, it really was important for us to launch it internally first. That's always number one step in our rebranding process, is to make sure that we're getting everyone in the company centered on the why and what's new and what else is going to be changing. And so and then also had the great fortune of attending the channel partner launch. And there was a lot of enthusiasm and excitement and feedback from channel partners about, all the pieces and parts. We actually stepped them through, right? The archetyping and the positioning and some of the brand exercise itself. And that feedback was incredible. So talk a little bit about, those two parts of the process.
Yeah, it was sort of an interesting, I was away at a conference when we did that internal launch, right, where we took some of this material actually, and I, let's say, took on the role of explaining to our staff, why we were rebranding and what our objectives were, what our business objectives were, what our timeline was. And I think in that process, what I tried to stress on the organization was that every person who works for Heidenhain Corporation has a contribution to Accurate. What you're showing here is a graphic that we developed some time ago, and we've added the new mark and name here into this family of brands graphic. And it's really the only place I would say where we bring all of the different brands together under the Heidenhain group. Heidenhain being the foundation, that's why it's sort of on the bottom of the picture in a larger font, but it also is represented in the top left, right, as being the parent of the brands. And that's the respectful approach that we want to take with Heidenhain as a parent company. Its proximity to Heidenhain in this chart is because it's the most important one to us in terms of business contribution, perhaps in some ways. Detail is certainly really important too, but we have to support all of the brands that are in the group in a way that again ties back to the solutions term, in that the way that we approach our customers is to engage with them to understand what is the right product solution for their applications.
Right.
So I think is the way that we developed a means to sort of position the various brands together in one spot, and we can more easily explain to our customers who we are as a group and what the interdependencies are, because we can drop into any one of these, talk about their technology differentiation or the market differentiation that each one of these brands are. Most of them are encoder companies or similar types of technology device. LTN is a slip ring technology. ETEL is more of a systems group for semiconductor applications. Motors for machine tool. Line and Lindy is an industrial application. Renko is a sub-brand of Heidenhain, manufactured by Heidenhain, but it's, it's a sub-brand of Red Caffeine, which is a, a It's essentially a lower cost technology that fits into small form factor. Ammo is again, a unique technology, which is inductive encoders, which has certain advantages in certain applications. And the list goes on, right? So, making sure that our organization at Heidenhain Corporation understands how important Acurite is to us locally, and also what their individual contribution is to the brand. So we took that the first step of educating our own local workforce as to, what we're doing and why their participation and association and engagement with this rebranding process is really important. And particularly in the archetype discussion in terms of, okay, what is our posture towards our customers, right? If we think about the creator and the everyman archetype. And we subsequently then took it into the channel partner group because, we wanted to make sure that our channel partners understood the rationale for the change, right? I mean, in any project, in any initiative, leadership generally will try and create sort of a core group of individuals, perhaps, or a team of individuals that can digest a problem statement, identify not very quickly, but effectively a set of solutions to that set of objectives, and then deepen the investment by that sort of creative process of drilling down and problem solving. But then the next step is, how do you bring people with you? And the channel partners are the most important part of our value chain, in the sense that, beyond the product and features that we develop, but so they were really also a critical part of the educational process. Okay, we've done a lot of work in restructuring our channel partner program, our training offerings, our educational process, and we're investing in our channel partners, and so we wanted them to feel as if they were a partner in the process.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the other piece is when you come to the website, development that's in line with the rebranding effort. When you look at the shift and change of direction there, it's very much in line with that sort of delivering technology solutions and also understanding applications. And it's that partnership between ourselves and our channel partners that allow us to have that visibility, right, into the end user world and say, okay, have we got the right fit? Do we need to develop different features, different capabilities, and how do we adapt to a changing environment within the manufacturing space? So that whole chain, right, of leadership, management, staff, the folks who are at coalface as well with our channel partners and serving our end users, really have to understand the philosophy and the approach that we're taking in terms of how we want to drive growth, right? And it's through those relationships that we generate sales, we generate long-term commitment and loyalty, and we really want to establish, that value chain in such a way that there is no other choice, right? That
Right.
customers want to do business with us for very clear reasons, and that the brand is head and shoulders ahead of any other competitor in the field, right? And we respect other companies working in the same space, but at the same time, we want to make sure that the choice of technology, choice of partner, is obvious to the end user and also to the channel partner that we're working with.
Right. I mean, I think that, is a super important distinction when you're selling through a channel partner or distribution channel. It is really important to always be timely and relevant and be, having them focus on your brand and your product line, because they might have other competing priorities. And so the more you can help them help you, I think that's like a really critical part of that type of a go-to-market strategy when your sales team is through channel partner sales. In terms of the brand overall, there was a lot of other elements that were going to be impacted by this refresh brand. So we'll show some of the product implications here. It shows. We'll talk a little bit about some of the other things that were impacted by this rebranding.
Yeah. So obviously, when you're relabeling something, right? We want to make sure that we have everything in place in a sort of coordinated way. So what we did was we targeted a timeline for introduction of the brand, the end of July of 2024, anticipating that we would be engaging with customers at IMTS in September.
Right.
So this runway right ahead of time. On the product side, as you're showing here, the primary change is going to be colors that we use in the interface of the screen itself, which are also being modified, and then the mark itself in the top left of the console. And operationally, we want to make sure that we minimize any of the rework or waste associated with moving from one brand identity to another, and then making sure that our customers, are understanding where we are in that process, right, as we move through that transition. So essentially, what we did was we forewarned our channel partners of what we were doing, right? We educated them, involved them in that process. We targeted IMTS as to when we would be going live with product, right, in this new branding format. But we also wanted to have a little bit of a runway where our end user community could see what we're doing. And that's what we did by perhaps an earlier digital launch, right? And that's what happened. And then, of course, with our staff, we've been, sort of making it abundantly aware that for them that we're at this point in the product launch, and they've been sort of seeing some of the collateral that we've been generating as well, and some of the things that Red Caffeine have been doing to support us in the swag and gifts, including cookies that you guys sent last week.
Oh, yeah. Even edible branding.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Which I thought was really cool, right? Because, feeding the troops, I guess, and the treats that you sort of surprise people with are helpful to get that level of engagement and understanding of, okay, we're here.
Yeah, I feel like, sometimes it's not really thought through. There was a lot of things that this was going to impact. And so, developing that roadmap, developing, a list of all the assets that it would impact. I think on the next slide, we just showcase some of the other things that have been refreshed throughout this rebranding process. And then, lastly, we just most recently relaunched the website with the new branding. So talk a little bit about the website, some of the new features and enhancements in terms of your channel partner locator, some of the features that were added in.
This is huge. Yeah, this is huge, for us in that, the buying behavior has certainly changed over the years, and a lot of interested parties are doing internet research in terms of who are the players in any given market. And what we wanted to translate was obviously the overall look and feel of the new brand itself, the mark integration. But I think what's more important than that is the content of the information that we're sharing. There's a lot of deep technical content, of course, on the products that's available through the website, and that's been translated very well. I think what sets us apart is the emphasis on the use cases and the case studies, and we really see the value of that. And you see that both in the web in interface, but also in social media, where when we post success stories that have a human component, or maybe they're an interesting, unique application of the product, you get a lot of engagement from people.
Yeah.
Right. If it's a straightforward plan, technical post, folks are interested, but what they are really interested in is the impact that the technologies have. And it's not always the technical content that people necessarily resonate with. It's more the human story as it relates to how the technology is used. One area that was a very strong focus for us was, the channel partner locator capability. And this is something that we feel strongly about, not just on the website, but also when we come to introduce any e-commerce solutions, that our goal is to be able to provide easy access to buying equipment and technology from accurate solutions. And our channel partners are part of that process. So what we're doing is we've streamlined our channel partners, right? And we're trying to give them the tools that will make it easier for them to purchase equipment from us, either for inventory purposes or for immediate end user applications. on the other side, when we have customers coming to us and finding us and looking for somebody to reach out to, either they can come directly to us and we will, engage with them on their applications questions. But whether it's a human on the end of the phone, right, or a Teams meeting, or whether it's a channel partner in the field that's working on behalf, we have the means to be able to move the conversation towards the channel partners, where you may have a local expert who can go on site, who can look at their application in real terms and provide support to them in terms of evaluating the right type of solution that is necessary for their application, and then ultimately be the conduit by which the product is delivered and ultimately protect and support. So that locator piece is really important to us. And, there's some caveats there, right? We don't highlight our OEI partners there because they're perhaps more on the equipment integration side and selling complete solutions, whereas our channel partners, distributors, are selling the components and kits directly to end users. And then the other piece is that we're very conscious of the relationship that we have with channel partners that are exclusive to us, right? And that loyalty that exists within the channel partner value chain. So we try and be respectful in all of those areas and make sure at the end of the day that the end user is getting the right information for them to connect with us or connect with our partners who are local to them. The other piece of it is in the e-commerce side of it, there's an opportunity perhaps where we don't have distribution coverage. A customer that is maybe a little bit more remote can come to us and we can make a decision as to what is the best solution for them in terms of channel partner and support, and given the relationships and the coverage that we already have. So that's a sort of work in progress, and it's something that we're continually refining.
Yeah,
I think the other piece of it is, sorry.
Go ahead. I think what you were saying, really touched on some of the early work, that was done around the different buying habits. We're really trying to meet customers where they're at in their decision-making process. So they're ready to buy, introducing a channel partner to help them through that purchase. If they're really more in the research phase, it's, content that will, from their peers or user stories that are really helpful in helping them determine what the right solution is for them. I think, that's the world we live in. And then the modern approach to adding the online buying experience that is kind of future state is really where a lot of people are going, because we are trying to meet all different buying habits in this modern buying ecosystem that we're all in today. So I think, you're striking a chord and really meeting the customers where they're at. Such an everyman approach to the brand. David, I know there's a couple other things that are exciting and upcoming. Talk a little bit about what's next. What is on the forefront?
Yeah. So the rebranding piece is a component of many others, right? Associated with Accurate, but also associated with Heidenhain Corporation as a whole, right? It's part of the story, part of the journey that we're on. And one of the objectives for me as a business leader is to say, okay, how do we reshape our footprint and our interface with our markets? So the reason why you see the Bay Bridge in the background, right, is that I'm on the West Coast. Part of the infrastructure development work that we've been doing since I've come on board is to really look at the opportunity of high growth market segments that are driven out of innovation on the West Coast. So we've just completed I'd say the third step of scaling here on the West Coast, both in terms of personnel, but also in terms of infrastructure. And part of that has been opening a new facility, which has 12,000 square feet of space. Half of that is allocated to our staff office area, and the remainder is now a collaborative demo center. Excuse me. So what's really exciting about that is we branded that too, right? In the sense that we want it to be a generic, let's say, identifier for the space where we want our partners, but also anybody else who has an interest in having a footprint in the Bay Area can engage with us in the same way by delivering equipment to that demo space and working together with partners on technology innovation. And then the other piece of it is ultimately we want to be able to create education for the next generation workforce out of this facility. So we're very excited by that. We're sort of at a point now where we're looking for elbow room to get more equipment in, and because it's been resonating so well with our partners, OEIs, OEMs, channel partners as well. So we're very, very happy about that. We call it Connect Manufacturing Innovation Hub, and actually it's also part of a broader objective where we're making some investments in Chicago as well, in Schaumburg facility, where we're modernizing that facility, right? And that's step one. And step two, which we've just initiated, is to jump into the demo space that we have in Schaumburg and reconfigure that in such a way that we can replicate the same type of Connect Manufacturing Innovation Hub infrastructure in Schaumburg as well. We already have demo equipment. We already have training spaces. We have a training academy that we promote through Schaumburg. And what we're trying to do is sort of gradually elevate both locations in a sort of consistent way and drive outreach to our partners to encourage participation. And so far, it's been very successful here in West Coast. We've had a long history already in Schaumburg. We haven't really branded it or driven it or marketed it in the way that we're doing now. And I would say what's coming beyond that, right? That renovation process in Schaumburg will continue to work through the end of the year for sure, maybe into 2025 in the service area. But certainly by the end of this year, we'll have extended, broader demo capability with additional partners engaged in Schaumburg. For Accurate itself, the next step is to enable the e-commerce platform, which runs alongside the website development. We had a very clear target of that to sort of introduce that to our channel partners in and around the IMTS event. So I know that we're working with Red Caffeine.
Right, just a couple weeks away.
Yeah. We're sort of crunching on it right now. But what's also interested in is that show is going to be a place where we'll be able to showcase the new branding. The way that we'll do that will be we will take the new branding and integrate it for the Accurate solution and integrate it into a more, let's say, corporate standard, let's say, for big events. So we got to be mindful that at the end of the day, the Heidenhain brand is a very solid and very specific branding platform. And when we integrate changes like this, we have to do that in a sort of respectful way to the parent company as well. So we will have Heidenhain, or we will have Accurate solutions front and center on the IMTS booth. The mark itself will be integrated into supporting material for the displays that we have at the show. And then we have some new technology that is sort of at the prototype level. And last week, actually, 2 weeks ago, I was in New York with the engineering team, getting an early view of what's going to be presented at IMTS in that sort of soft introduction phase for this new product. And I'm really, really excited by it. It sort of creates an emotional response when you see a product that's being realized that has taken 18 months, 2 years to take from concept to reality. And when you can touch it, feel it, drive it, see software operating on a hardware platform that's been designed from the ground up with technology and components coming from the mothership, and you're integrating it in a way that uniquely resonates with Accurate customers is very powerful. So IMTS is an important event for us in that context. I would say that it's probably not going to be a broad, open sort of introduction of a product as such. It's more of a soft introduction because there's a variety of other development objectives that we still need to work on through early 2025. So the likelihood is that mid-2025 will be sort of launching that product in earnest, right, to the market. And we want to get feedback in between now and then, right? So
yeah. Well, I think it speaks to your view and on collaboration. I think the innovation hubs, I mean, just being able to meet customers, meet channel partners, be able to share, you know, share innovation and work collaboratively hand in hand with emerging workforce. I mean, that is so exciting, and it just is, there's just a lot to come through the end of this year and into 2025. So with that, I want to give, everyone a chance to learn how to reach out to you, David. If there's a question, David is reachable through his email address or LinkedIn. If you've got a question about rebranding or the process, you can reach out to him about his experience, as well as if you've got a question about any of the Accurate or Heidenhain brand products. I think one last question I'm going to leave you with, David, is, what would be the one thing you'd tell another leader who's thinking about starting a rebranding effort?
Yeah. First of all, choose the right partner.
I think that's really important, obviously.
Yeah.
And not feeling self-serving either. I think you do want the right chemistry and partner.
You want to have the right chemistry, right, in that process, because in reality, what you're doing is you're opening the door to, your personality as a company and your personality as a product or a brand. The second part of that would be to say, go deep, right? Go challenge your assumptions, right? Make sure that you have good market intelligence,
right,
in terms of where you sit, right? And that can be very technical, I would say. But you have to get to the softer piece of that, right? Is what is the perception of the brand in the market, and that's where you have to be brutally honest about, some of the things that you have to really address before you can have a successful relaunch effort, right? And redefinition. So that would be the other thing. And the other thing is validate, right? So at every step along the way, make sure that you're, on track, that you're validating, where you are in the process, both in terms of execution, but also I think in terms of the reception of your channel partners and also of your staff and also of your customers. And I know that my team has done a really outstanding job of doing all of those things, right? In terms of coming up with product ideas, coming up with concepts, and realizing them, engaging with our channel partners and getting feedback. A difficult process is product naming as well, right? So, some of the future stuff that we're looking at is we're right in the midst of sort of creating that sort of product identifier. So, it's a question of being open to change, but also going deep and making sure that you, are honest in the process of evaluating where you are and where you can go to. And then it's commitment, right? It's just seeing it through all the way to the end result. And remember, we're results driven. So, the context of all of this is very much in terms of how do we grow the top line of our business, and how do we improve the bottom line in the process. So, back in 2018, we had one view where we wanted to be, and actually that's one of the things that we started out at the very beginning of our workshop process is what are we defining as our goals in terms of growth. We have to understand the ebb and flow of markets. We don't control everything, so focus on what you can control, make sure you validate, and make sure you see it all the way.
Yeah, it's definitely an art and science, but it is, it should be rooted in business strategy. And I think, the collaboration was incredible on this process. So thank you so much for being with us today. I want to thank our sponsors, HR Source and M3 Learning. They really help make sure that we're providing this incredible content for the business community and leaders in that community. And I want to tell you a little quick update about our next event. I can't believe we are thinking about 2025, but we are going to be talking about B2B growth trends from automation to acquisition and what business leaders should have on their roadmap for 2025. We're going to be joined by two Red Caffeiners who are working, with lots of different clients and leaders in the space. And we're going to talk about things like AI and marketing on sales automation and e-commerce, as well as, what's happening in the M&A market. A lot of our clients are going through some type of transaction with their business. Is there an opportunity for you to extend capabilities or think about optimizing your business in terms of sales and valuation. So really excited to talk about this. Really can't believe it's almost the fall. So stay tuned and join us on September 12th. And with that, David, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate your time and stepping us through, the process of this rebranding effort. It's been such a pleasure to work with you and your team. Thank you to our audience for sticking with us and attending today. I really appreciate that. And then with that, I want to just leave everyone with, let's continue to challenge the usual and pursue innovative business solutions.